We have some major news about Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. You might have heard that there seems to be a production delay, and this is reportedly because Marvel Studios is essentially starting over with Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. However, it is not entirely what you think, and of course we'll get into it, but we also have an update about other Phase 6 projects in the MCU, along with a quick little update about Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. So if you want to stay up to date on all things Marvel, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We talk about Marvel every single day. We'll go ahead and start off with the Beyond the Spider-Verse news because it's really quick. We haven't really heard much about Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. The only thing fans have really been waiting for is that official release date for the movie, which we don't have yet, and it seems like there's no release date in sight as we get an update from the voice actor who voices the variant of Miles Morales / the Prowler at the end of Across the Spider-Verse, says that he has not recorded any lines yet for Beyond the Spider-Verse, and we know his character is going to play a pretty decent sized role in the movie. So things don't seem to be moving along too quickly. Again, it doesn't seem like a release date is anywhere in sight, and at this point, a lot of people think it's not even going to come out in 2025, even though it was supposed to release last year in 2024. So if we hear any update about that release date, we'll be sure to let you all know. Now, going into Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, you might have recently heard that there does seem to be a slight delay in production for Doomsday. And now we reportedly have a reason for this delay, which I actually am quite happy with. According to the insider Daniel RPK, the Russo brothers are completely rewriting the script for Doomsday and Secret Wars, as in they are starting from scratch. Also, according to Daniel RPK, they are still writing the script currently, and they have until March to finish it. And speaking to Collider at New York Comic-Con last year, the Russo brothers said that filming is going to begin in spring of 2025, so the second quarter of 2025, which we're really not far from, almost just a couple of months away. So everything is still on track since Avengers Doomsday is supposed to release May 1st of 2026. So still well over a year away, so don't worry about Avengers Doomsday being postponed or delayed. Of course, that could always happen because something could come up while they're shooting, but as of right now, it's not delayed. Just the beginning of production is. But again, I think this is for a great cause. Michael Waldron was working on the script for Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars. Michael Waldron also wrote Loki Season 1, not Loki Season 2, just the first season, and he also helped write Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And I personally think he would have done a great job, but everything that they were writing prior to the announcement of Robert Downey Jr. returning as Doctor Doom was for Kang to be the main villain. And the story was essentially going to be about a Prime Kang and then, of course, the Council of Kangs. So the story now is completely different with the introduction of Doctor Doom in the MCU. And according to reports, when Robert Downey Jr. came back, he specifically stated that he would come back if the Russo brothers came back as well. So even at the point where Kevin Feige was thinking, I'd really like to have Doctor Doom be the new villain to replace Kang, and I'd really like to have Robert Downey Jr. come back to play Doctor Doom, at that time, Kevin Feige's plans, whatever they were, for Doom were still very different than what the Russo brothers are coming up with now with Stephen McFeely. However, keep in mind, and this is some really good news that should comfort a lot of people, the Russo brothers only agreed to come back after they decided what they wanted to do with Secret Wars, the story they wanted to tell. In fact, they claim it was a story that they needed to tell. In a recent interview with Empire, they stated that they've always been in touch with Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios, but no inspiration really struck. There was nothing to bring them back, and Anthony Russo said really what happened was we ended up stumbling upon an idea that activated all of us. You couldn't see it coming until it came, and once it came, it was like, well, that's a story we need to tell. Then Joe Russo said, there were ideas that we were trying to wrap our heads around that preceded this one, and we just never found the story. But then they say that it all kind of worked when Stephen McFeely hit on how the Secret Wars comic art might work in MCU form. And Joe Russo says, I remember calling Steve and said, hey, crazy idea. What do you think if we all go back and do Secret Wars? He says, speaking to Steve, you were like, F no, absolutely not. And then you hung up. And the next morning at 7:30, you called and were like, all right, I have an idea. And according to the Russos and Stephen McFeely, this was the brilliant idea that got them all to return. So this all happened before the announcement that they were returning to direct and write with Stephen McFeely, Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, which means they've had had this idea before July of 2024. So they've had some time already to work on the script, to really lock down all the big ideas for Avengers Doomsday, and of course Secret Wars as well, because this is going to lead directly into Secret Wars. And I'm sure they're going to keep some aspects of the original script for Kang Dynasty, but obviously since it's a new villain and the Council of Kangs isn't involved anymore, a lot of it's going to be pretty different. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Dr. Doom gets his hands on some of Kang's technology. But the Russo brothers coming in at this time back with Stephen McFeely is really the best thing that we could ask for, because it seems like Marvel Studios was just going to kind of get rid of Kang either way. In fact, when Jonathan Majors was found guilty and it was announced that Marvel Studios got rid of him, major trades reported that Marvel Studios went on their yearly retreat and Dr. Doom was brought up way before Kevin Feige had even spoken to Robert Downey Jr. about returning as Doom. So this was going to happen anyways, and now the Russo brothers are directing and Stephen McFeely is writing both Avengers movies. That's the best thing we can ask for, because we'll essentially get another Infinity War and Endgame. Continuity is very, very important when it comes to these films, especially since, given the situation with the entirety of the MCU, with Kang having been set up and no longer being the big bad, there's not a lot of time for build-up. But if anybody can handle it, I believe it's the Russo brothers with Stephen McFeely. Now, like I also mentioned, we do have a Phase 6 update, and possibly even a Phase 7 update, because according to the insider Daniel RPK once again, Doctor Strange 3 and Shang-Chi 2 are reportedly going to begin filming in 2026. Now, we've been hearing a lot about both projects for a while now, and we know that both are happening. The only question is when, because one of these has to be released after Avengers Secret Wars, because they just don't have enough time to film both of these movies before they start filming Avengers Secret Wars. Avengers Secret Wars is reportedly going to start filming in spring of 2026. That's essentially kind of towards the end of March, which means there's no way they'll have time to film 2 movies before that. In fact, filming one movie at the start of 2026 before the second quarter of 2026, which is when Avengers Secret Wars will begin filming, that in itself would be super hard. That's only 3 months of filming. So it is entirely possible that both of these movies might come after Avengers Secret Wars. But if I had to speculate, I would say that Shang-Chi 2 is coming after Secret Wars for sure. And Doctor Strange 3 could come before the end of Secret Wars, which I would actually guess is going to happen. It looks like we'll pick back up with his story, what's going on with him and Clea, what we saw at the end of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We'll pick back up with that in Avengers Doomsday, in which of course they're going to address this. We'll probably have some things happen like the multiverse essentially get destroyed at the end of Avengers Doomsday, and then in between we'll have a few movies come out. Spider-Man 4 is one of them, and I'm assuming Doctor Strange 3 is going to be another. And if it does come out before Secret Wars, it'll pretty much be a huge Avengers level movie, especially if the multiverse has been destroyed. It'll probably be about him exploring some options of how to restore the multiverse, and I'm assuming the Scarlet Witch will be involved and possibly Reed Richards. It kind of just has to be big in nature because of where it's going to take place, right before Secret Wars. And the good news is, with the Russo brothers starting from scratch with Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, is that with the writers for these other films like Spider-Man 4, Doctor Strange 3, and whatever other movies are going to come in between, not to mention shows as well, they can team up with the Russo brothers and Stephen McFeely to make sure everything is very cohesive, making sure it's all together and the continuity flows very, very well. So despite some of the unfortunate circumstances that the MCU was placed in due to Marvel Studios moving away from Kang, and whether they should have moved away or not is an entirely different discussion, but due to the circumstances they're in because they moved away, it actually does seem like we're in a pretty good position to get the best out of this situation. And I've said this before, but it really does seem like this is the case. Marvel Studios seems to have simply reverted back to what works. They're bringing back the OG Avengers, or at least they're bringing back all of the OG actors, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, and of course the others who are still in the MCU are going to show up like Hawkeye, Bruce Banner, Thor, and of course some of the newer Avengers as well. And they brought back the directors and the writer of 2 of their biggest movies of the MCU, and simply 2 of the biggest movies of all time. Hey, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And we know that this works. So we're in really, really good hands. But go ahead and let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you never miss out on any of the latest MCU news, rumors, or leaks. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.